Quinoa is an edible seed crop being grown successfully by Dan and Jackie Cottrell on a small scale near Taihape. Dan and Jackie believe there are good prospects for establishing an industry in New Zealand for domestic and export markets. They've now created their own brand to market their homegrown quinoa.
The idea of Kiwi quinoa came to us when we were travelling through South America back in 2012, and we noticed it growing in a lot of different parts of Peru and Bolivia, but it was particularly Peru where Dan said to me, gosh, this landscape looks so similar to parts of the Central Plateau back home, and that just got us thinking about opportunities for diversification and other things that we could be growing on the farm in addition to sheep and beef. It also fit with our values. I was really into different foods and particularly health foods, and quinoa ticks a lot of boxes on that front. Regarding our own brand, we hadn't really considered that far ahead when we just were thinking about growing the plant initially and could we grow it here, and that was the first step. And then it was, okay, it grows really successfully, so let's have a go at marketing it ourselves, and all new skills that we had not, exercised before. So it's been a massive learning curve, but particularly rewarding. It was reasonably straightforward to import the seed in that we just worked closely with MPI and made sure we gave them plenty of notice about what we were doing, and it was quite a straightforward process. There's quite a lot of work required around food safety for bringing a product to the marketplace, and so that has consumed a lot of time for us, but it has meant that we've got a huge amount of processes in place to make sure our product is top-notch, ready for consumers. There is a much greater awareness around quinoa now compared to back in the early 2000s or late 90s when I think I first started playing with it. I think that's down to a number of reasons. One of them is a move towards more plant-based foods. Also, the fact that it's gluten-free. It is a very nutritious food from a grain perspective. And it's also really sustainably produced. So I think most of those things lend themselves to being considered a healthy food option for consumers.
I mean, it just looks like these heads are half the size of Enfield. Yeah. We changed varieties this year. We were 3 years with a variety called Jessie, which is Kiwi quinoa as we know. We did a trial of Duchess, which is what I'm standing in front of now. So it's just basically newer, better, stronger. It addressed a lot of the challenges we were having, namely lodging. So Jessie would be very strong and fall over in the last minute. Also, the trial showed how we increased our yield by almost a tonne to the hectare. It was around 30%. I mean, that in itself is pretty big. So the lodging and the yield were the strengths. A bit of a challenge from it is it is a later variety, so it's probably added 30 days to Jessie in a direct heading combining situation. So what we've done to get around that is we've used windrowing. This is about 100 days now, which is when we would have direct headed Jessie. And we'll windrow this in the next couple of days, let it bake for five days, and then come in and harvest it. And that's what we did with the trial, and it worked really well. Quinoa is the only crop I've windrowed. The farmers, the arable and seed farmers in Canterbury will be well familiar with it. Often they're used for things like grass seed, clover seed, oilseed rape, crops that do have an ununiform maturity. So you mow similar to like with a combine harvester, leaves it in a windrow on stalks, maybe 200 mil off the ground, to then dry in the sun. And then that also helps the senescence process and evens up the maturity. We're growing it very much without sprays, without herbicides. The way around that has been in the work prior to sowing. So we're talking like a double spray with a fallow period. The longer the better. The field I'm in here was cultivated during a terrible spring. We didn't get the fallow period we needed. It was really about 2 weeks, and I think that's why it shows. I mean, there's sort of bits of fat end sort of scattered throughout. Ideally, we're targeting a fallow period about 4 weeks. That seems to let a lot of the weed bank can come up and get away, and then we can strike that out and sow immediately. The crop length window, I should say, 100 days, windrow harvest, that fits in with rotations, with cereal harvests and that kind of thing. It's basically coming in against peas, I suppose. It's a very profitable, viable option, new option for arable cropping farmers, so long as we keep building these markets, which is what we're working on. Yeah, some of these bottom seeds are still forming, Jack. So this field of quinoa was direct drilled compared to cultivation with the last one, and it's really telling, particularly in a dry year. In a nutshell, we started out direct drilling with minimum tillage, and it just didn't work for us. The quinoa, we didn't get the numbers. I think, and looking back now, that was more of an issue with the drill we were using. So from there, we went to a fine seed bed and cultivation, and to see this perform on a year like this, markedly better than the cultivated, gives me a lot of satisfaction. And it simplifies things. We don't want to be cultivating if possible. Obviously, much less workload, and as you can see behind me, I mean, we're probably looking at least double the yield. This has had 2 years of pasture. It was an Italian ryegrass, white clover, red clover mix for hay. Also lambed early ewes on it and shut up for baleage. So that's a 3-year rotation, quinoa, pasture, back to quinoa, and it's working really well, so really happy with it.
Thanks, New Zealand On Air.